now it's time to start. I hereby declare this defense open. You are all very welcome to take part of this public defense arranged by Södertörns University, Stockholm, Sweden. I will start by presenting everyone who is part of the panel. My name is Jenny Berglund. I'm professor at Stockholm University, and I've also been the first supervisor of Renat Bekkin, who today will defend his thesis, People of Reliable Loyalty, Muftiates and the State of Modern Russia. Renat, can you turn on your camera so we can see you and say hello?
One moment, yeah. Hello.
Yeah, hello Renat.
Hello.
Okay. As the external reviewer, I welcome Dr. Galina Yemilova from School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London.
Hello.
Can we see you? Yeah, okay. Then we have the members of the examining committee. They are Associate Professor Karina Aitamurto from Russian Eurasian Studies, Alexandria Institute, University of Helsinki. Hello. Associate Professor Ulle Sundström from Department of Historical, Philosophical and Religious Studies, University of Umeå. And Professor David Thurfjell from Study of Religions, Department of Historical Contemporary Studies, Södertörns University. With us today, we also have 3 substitutes. If anyone in the examining committee cannot continue through the defense, they will have to step in. Associate Professor Gunilla Gunner from Study of Religions, Department of Historical Contemporary Studies, Södertörns University. Professor Lena Roos, also from Study of Religions, Department of Historical and Contemporary Studies, Södertörns University. And Professor Jan Järpe, Department of History of Religions and Religious Behavioral Science, Lund University. Jan, can you, yes, there we have, welcome. As part of the panel is also Professor Mark Bassin, Center for Baltic and East European Studies at Södertörns University, who has been the second supervisor. Hello, Mark. And then we have Associate Professor Helena Bergman, who is Director of Studies here at Södertörns University. Okay, so now you know all who we are. The defense is, as the tradition and requirements of doctoral dissertations in Sweden, open to the public. Usually a public defense takes place in a lecture hall and anyone who wants can attend. During these very special times that we are living through at this moment, we have chosen to make the defense public through a Zoom webinar instead. This actually has advantages since it makes the defense accessible for you who live in different parts of the world, and you are most welcome to this defense as well. I will now continue by explaining the procedure so that you in the audience know what will happen during the next 2 hours. Note that we aim for 2 hours, but it can be stretched. First of all, I will give the floor to Renat Bekkin, who then has the possibility to make a short comment on his thesis. After this, the external reviewer will provide a presentation of the contents and conclusions of the thesis. The author will get the possibility to comment on the presentation. After this actual defense, the actual defense will start, where the external reviewer asks important and critical questions about the thesis and have a discussion with the author. When this part is finished, I will give the floor to the reviewing committee, who gets the possibility to ask questions if they want. As part of the defense, it is possible for you in the audience to ask questions. You do this by writing them in the chat. Please do not write questions in the chat until the last 10 minutes of the defense, since the questions you have might very well be answered during the discussion. Professor Lena Roos will, as last part of this act, read the questions from the chat and the author will answer them. If you want to pose a question, please formulate it in a concise manner. After the defense is finished, the examining committee will convene in a separate Zoom room. This might take 30, 45, maybe 60 minutes. They will then come back to this room and announce their decision. So let us begin. The floor is yours, Renat.
Thank you very much, Jenny. I would like to thank all the participants of this event, especially my supervisors. I would like also to mention, except Jenny and Mark, David Westerlund, who was also one of the supervisors. I hope he is also with us via Zoom. I would like also to thank Galina Yemelyanova, who is one of the leading experts in the field of Islam in Russia, that she agreed to be an opponent for my dissertation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Renat. I then turn to Dr. Yemelyanova. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Now I'll try to use the function of sharing the screen. Okay. Okay. Okay, can you see the screen, sharing screen? Yeah? Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, we can see the screen, but you may want to go to slideshow so we can see one slide at a time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Better.
Okay. Well, okay, I will start. It gives me a great pleasure to act as an external reviewer for Renat's very impressive piece of work entitled Peoples of Reliable Loyalty, Muftiates and State in Modern Russia, which really very well presented book, a very substantial book consisting of 8 chapters, which includes 12 photos, original photos to Muslim clergy, so-called clergy in Imperial Russian, Soviet and post-Soviet period. And as Renat pointed out, in introduction, it's focused on the study of Muftiates as institution, Muftiates in European part of Russia and its relationship with the Russian state and the Russian Orthodox Church. In terms of sources of the thesis, they're really impressive and diverse. The primary sources include the author's 23 semi-structured in-depth interviews with muftis, other senior Muslim bureaucrats and officials dealing with religious policy conducted by Renat between 2018 and 2020. Also, it is based on official documents and legal acts related to state religious policy and 14 published collections of state documents related to the regulation of Islam in Imperial Russia and the Soviet Union. Secondary sources are extremely comprehensive and include over 60 scholarly monographs in Russian, Ukrainian, English, and German languages, academic journal articles, Ph.D. dissertations, academic journal articles and chapters of books. Very impressive and very comprehensive base, source base. This thesis theoretical framework is original in a sense that Renat uses an interdisciplinary approach by drawing on economics, sociology, and political sciences. In particularly, he employs the theory of economics of religion by drawing on Adam Smith's idea of a church as a firm, and the development of this idea by contemporary neoclassical economists Lawrence Iannacone, Robert Ekulang, and many others. On the basis of the theory, the thesis employs economic terms such as religious market, red, black, and gray religious market, market competition, costs, religious services, monopoly, oligopoly, firm, cartel, and others for the analysis of the relationship between Muftiates, the state, and the Russian Orthodox Church. The particular novelty of this application relates to the fact that Renat focus on the role of the state as regulator and consumer of religious products. He also draws on the theory of institutions, mainly based on works by Douglas North. And while examining the level of religious and political influence of muftis and other Islamic officials, he draws on Max Weber theory of authority, charismatic, traditional, and legal rational. The thesis methodology is qualitative, and as I mentioned, he used in-depth semi-structured interviews and participant and ethnographic observation, textual analysis of official documents, and other relevant printed and website sources. His reasoning methods include analysis, synthesis, abstraction, concretization, deduction, induction, and analogy. Now I'll just go briefly kind of through the contents of the dissertation chapter by chapter. As I mentioned, it consists of 8 chapters. The first chapter, it outlines the aim and research questions of the dissertation. The aim is the study of historical transformation of Muftiyat as institution rather than as organization and its role in modern Russia. So Renat posed to himself 5 major questions. What is the nature of Muftiyat as an institution? How to understand the written and unwritten rules and regulations which govern the institution of Muftiyat? How does the theory of economics of religion helps to understand the interaction between Russian Muftiyats, the Russian state, and religious organization in Russian religious market? How to understand and categorize Muftiyats that exist in modern Russia, and finally, how to understand the concept of traditional religions and its application in modern Russia. This thesis provides adequate and detailed answers to all these 5 questions. Also, the chapter 1 positions the thesis within extensive Russian and international scholarship on the research topics and highlights the thesis contribution to the scholarship. It discusses ethical issues such as authors' insider-outsider position in this research, and clarify what the dissertation implies by institution compared to organization, Muftiyat as institution compared to Muftiyat as organization. It explains the rationale for the use of theory of economics of religion for the better understanding of Muftiyat's activity and their relations with the state and Russian Orthodox Church. He achieves this by approaching federal, regional, and parallel Muftiyat as key players in the Islamic segment of the Russian religious market, which also includes the state and local religious organizations of Muslims. The chapter contends that the Muftiyats offer both religious and non-religious services to the state, including foreign policy services. In return, the state acts as the main consumer of the religious products offered by the Muftiyats, while everyday religious needs of believers are satisfied by individuals' imams. The state also acts as the key regulator of religious market and pays for Muftiyat services through financial and administrative support. The thesis argues argues that the Islamic segment of the religious market in Russia is oligopolistic at both federal and regional levels compared to the monopolistic model of the Russian Orthodox segment of the religious market. Also, due to the centrality of the Russian Orthodox Church in the religious market, Muftiates' weight is determined by their strategy towards both the state and the Russian Orthodox Church, which explain the need for some Christianisms in their strategy and terminology. Now we're moving to chapter 2, which is historical chapter, and it deals with the formation of the Russian Muftiat as Orenburg Mohammedan Spiritual Assembly in 1788. And this is until the Bolshevik Revolution. It goes stage by stage, explaining how it evolved. Renat explained the specifics, terminological specifics of Tatar Muslim Islamic authorities who used Arabic terms like alim, mufti, qadi, imam khatib, and together with Tatar terms like ahun, abbas, and Turkish like effendi and others, which explain different influences on the formation of this institution. Also, he highlights the potential Byzantine, German, and Ottoman influences on the creation of the Muftiyat in Russia. This chapter also addresses such important issue why this institution helped to create kind of Tatar Muslim clergy as a special social separate social group. The main reasons for it, according to dissertation, are the Kazan conquest by Russians in 1552, reforms by Peter the Great and Catherine the Great. And also, he explains here the role of Orenburg Muftiyat as an instrument in transformation of relations between the Russian state and its Muslim subject from being horizontal to vertical. The chapter provide explanation of very ambivalent relations between the Orenburg Muftiyat and the state, and especially between Muftiyat and Russian Orthodox Church, by focusing on negative attitude of Orthodox missionaries and officials who were against the whole idea of Muftiyat, existence of Muftiyat in Russia. Importantly, he also points that the Orenburg Muftiyat, which was originally an instrument of the state control over Muslim subject, developed into a defender of Tatar national identity by the late 19th century. He provides different views on the role of Muftiyat among Russian Muslims, especially Tatars, that not all Muslim clergy supported it, and there were opponents such as Salih Kazani, Utizemeni, Vaisov, and others who rejected the whole idea of Muftiyat, while others were were mainly critical of particular individuals who were in charge of Muftiyat, including Sheikh Marjani, Ibrahimov, and others. But on the whole, as chapter contents, the creation of the Orenburg Muftiyat was a progressive move towards legalization and institutionalization of Islam in Russia. Chapter 3 is also historical, but it deals with the Soviet period and it shows the evolution of Orenburg Muftiat, who became Ufa Muftiat, as it was based in Ufa. The special place is given to the discussion of Dinya Nazarati, which is Ministry of Education. It's a short period. For the short period, this organization existed after Bolshevik Revolution, and it was independent from the Bolshevik state. As Renat argues, this was unfulfilled opportunity to reform Muftiat. So it wasn't realized. And after that, the chapter goes through different approaches of the Bolshevik and Soviet leadership towards Islam and Muslim Muftiats and the so-called Muslim clergy in Russia. He identified several major periods, the kind of tolerated period when Islam was tolerated after revolution until 1929, and then Stalinist repression of Islam as well as Orthodox Christianity. And during this repression, there was another opportunity to reform the institution by abolishing it, but again it was lost, as Renat argued, during this period. And then after the Second World War, and during the Second World War and after, there was a kind of religious thaw when again the Islamic life revived up to limited level. And then we're witnessing Khrushchev anti-Islamic campaign between 1950s and mid-1960s. Followed by relaxed state control under the conditions of real socialism until perestroika, basically, in the mid-1980s. He approaches Ufa Muftiyat, or spiritual Muslim directorate of Russia, as part of Soviet Islam, along with other three major regional muftiyats which existed on the territory of Soviet Union, is Central Asian Spiritual Directorate, Caucasian Spiritual, Transcaucasian Spiritual Directorate, and North Caucasian Spiritual Directorate, and highlights the regulatory and monetary function of the Council for Religious Affairs, which existed from 1965, and security forces and KGB in particularly. Chapter 4 moves to contemporary situation in the Islamic segment of the Russian religious market, and deals with legislature and classification of contemporary muftiyat in European Russia. Renat introduced his own kind of classification, which is innovative, of Russian muftiyats by dividing them on all Russian or federal muftiyats, and he includes in them the Ufa muftiyat, Moscow muftiyat, Moscow-based muftiyat under Ravil Gainuddin, and coordinating center of Muslims of North Caucasus. The second category is regional muftiyats, and the largest one, which is discussed in his dissertation, is Muftiyat of Tatarstan, of Republic of Tatarstan. Other ones, Muftiyats of Bashkortostan and other Russian regions with Muslim population. And the third category is so-called parallel Muftiyats, which is umbrella organizations which claim pan-Russian status, but they are not affiliated with all Russian federal Muftiyats of the first category. The chapter outline the major stages of confessional policy, which is perestroika period, when is dismantling of Soviet model, and then the period of confessional liberalism until 1993, and then from 1994 till 1997 is a change of religious policy towards developing the concept of Russian traditional religions, four Russian traditional religions, and Islam being one of them. And between 1997 and 2015, there was further consolidation of dichotomy between traditional, non-traditional religions. And now we're kind of living through the period which started in 2016, which witnessed further religious restrictions and criminalization of non-traditional religions. Overall, Renat highlights problematic nature of the Russian secularism as state supports so-called traditional religions. Chapter 5 is dealing specifically with federal Muftiates, Ufa-based Muftiates, or Dumes, or Tsdum, as the only kind of post-Soviet survivor, along with Baku Muftiyat in Trans-Caucasus, which is retain its role under the same leader, Talgat Tajuddin. And he discussed the role of Talgat Tajuddin as the most educated, theologically educated Islamic leader of Russia, and his relations with Kazan national movement, and his especially his very close relations with the Russian Orthodox Church, including his idea of creating kind of Orthodox caliphate in Russia, or renaming Ufa Muftiyat as Muftiyat of Holy Rus. He also approached him as part of the general kind of clannish or clan system of Tatar society, as a kind of, as a role, especially a role of Rashida Abastai as a kind of connecting female Islamic authority for Kazan Tatar Muslim clerics. The second federal institution which he discusses is the Moscow-based Higher Coordination Center for Spiritual Administrations of Muslim of Russia, and the Council of Muslims, Council of Muftis of Russia, which has been created as an initiative of Mufti Rabil Gainuddin, and he explained its political agenda, which is more political than theological, compared to Ufa-based Muftiyat, and ambivalent relations of Ravil Gainuddin presided organization with the Russian Orthodox Church. He insists on competition, rather subordination to Russian Orthodox Church, as in the case of Mufti Tajuddin. Chapter 6 looks at Muftiyat of Republic of Tatarstan as a case study of regional Muftiyats, and the reason for the choice of this particular Muftiyat is this: in terms of number of affiliated communities, Islamic communities is the largest in Russia, in European Russia, and Renat goes through the kind of evolution of this Muftiyat with very close relations with the Tatar national movement, and in the first 5 years subordination to Tatar national movement, and then gradual return to the kind of Soviet or Imperial Russian model of Muftiyat following the reunification Congress, Islamic Congress in 1998. as well, he addressed the issue of attempt of extraterritoriality of this Muftiyat by creating so-called Kazan Muftiyat, which tried to establish its control over Tatar communities outside the borders of Tatarstan, but it was short-term project. Also discuss the chapter discuss Muftiyat relations with Council of Muftis of Russia, Russian federal authorities, and Russian Orthodox Church, and argues that overall it's a lower scale of center's intervention here we're witnessing in this case. But in general, Renat argues that Muftiyat of Tatarstan represent a Tatarstan version of the federal model of the state Muslim relations. The same mechanism regulates these relations. And finally, the chapter 7 deals with the new phenomena in Russian Islamic market. Is a parallel, so-called, it's Renat's term, parallel Muftiyats. What he means by them, it's two organizations which were created, one in 2010, this Russian Association of Islamic Consensus, and the other one, the Spiritual Assembly of Muslim of Russia, was created in 2016. They were created according to the dissertation as a third force, as a counterbalance to the federal muftis, such as under the leadership of Tajuddin and Gainuddin. These two muftiyats are perceived as lacking legitimacy and as being much more stronger dependent on the Kremlin. But it implies that they're both more kind of leaning towards Ufa-based Muftiyat than Moscow-based Muftiyat under Gainuddin. Then the chapter deals with the leadership of both Muftiyats, and of particular interest is the analysis of Kurganov's position on true Islam and his viewing Sufism as a kind of the core of Russian traditional Islam, and which was expressed in Kurganov's support for Grozny fatwa in 2016, which was adopted as the initiative of Chechen leadership. And at the end, the chapter argues that the establishment of this parallel muftiyats is a short-term solution against the institutional reunification of the Russian Ummah. Now, the final chapter is dedicated to conclusions of Renat's research, and it argues that the study of muftiyats in Russia, where the state acts as a major regulator and consumer of religious projects, allows to test and develop the theory of economics of religion in relation to the Islamic segment of the religious market in Russia. The other conclusion is that the muftiyats operate as competing firms in the religious market, and institutionally they are either incorporated or not incorporated within the system of government bodies. The thesis concludes that the state ensures muftiyats' oligopolistic position and control over the religious market. Both the state and muftiyats oppose pluralism in the religious market. And regional muftiyats also act as oligopolistic firms which sell their goods and services to both regional and federal authorities. The dissertation argues that historically the primary source of muftis' legitimacy in Russia has been their position in the state rather than their spiritual authority among the faithful. And nevertheless, from the second part of the 19th century, the Orenburg Muftiat also acted as a Tatar national institution. The persistence of the institution of Muftiat, as argued in the thesis, is due to its key function as a conductor of state policy among Muslims. And finally, Renat argues that a substantive reform of the institution of Muftiat should only be initiated from within the Muslim community. So that's my kind of summary of this very impressive work. So that's
okay. Thank you very much for this thorough presentation of the work. And I now turn to Renat, who has the possibility to comment and say something if you recognize your thesis.
So, okay, thank you very much. It was very strict and very detailed analysis of the thesis. Thank you very much, Galina. To tell the truth, I do not have nothing to it. Everything was presented as I intended to do.
Okay, thank you so much. So now we turn to the external reviewer, Galina Yemla again, and it's time for your questions.
okay. Okay. Yes, you can see it, I hope. Yeah. Okay, Renat. Well, as I said, I read your thesis with great interest and enjoy reading it. And I think it's very good, but I still have questions, and I hope you help me to resolve them. On page 30, for example, you clearly defined your research questions, 5 research questions, which I mentioned. And you dealt with them very well. But you also allude to the thesis hypothesis, which you tested through your interviews. But I couldn't find any statement of what they are. It would be helpful if you could elaborate on their substance, please.
Oh, okay, so I should reply now.
Yes, you should reply.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much for this question. Hello? Yes. No, there is here, it's the problem. Okay, without it, sorry. First of all, it was some controversial things like thesis about the creation, the causes for creation of parallel Muftiates, who was the initiator of establishing such kind of such kind of organization. This subject relates to so-called unwritten rules, so-called notions, not prescribed in the legislation, but really existed in the confessional policy of the Russian Federation. So I wanted to, I have I had insider information about how some of the organization started to exist, and basing on this information, I tried to make hypotheses on the causes for establishing such kind of parallel Muftiates. But I wanted to support my view with my interviews. So that's why if I confirmed it by at least 2 persons who confirmed my not suspicions, but my hypothesis, I used it in the text. If not, I did not use it. So this is my answer.
Okay, all right, I see. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. My other question is that building on the nuanced definition of the nature of the Soviet atheistic state, which you referred to in your dissertation, how would you define the nature of the modern Russian state and society in terms of their formal and informal relationship with religion? Is it post-atheist, post-secular, hybrid, or something else?
Oh, thank you very much. I don't have, I think about it and I thought about it. I think hybrid is a very, the best term for this. Of course, in fact, and according to the constitution, Russia is a secular state, but you know that after the new change promulgated, the name of God, God is mentioned and so on. So even the constitution demonstrates that it's not a pure secular state, but it's a hybrid. It's a good definition, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. This is something about interaction of Muftiates with external Muslim world. So you described Muftiates as oligopolistic firms, which along with the Russian Orthodox Church as a monopolistic firm control Russian religious market. I just wonder, do Muftiates participate in global pluralistic Islamic market? So if so, what strategy do they employ in order to sustain their oligopoly internally?
If you do you mean some foreign policy activities of the Muftiates, or what do you mean to specify? Of course, they try to be, for instance, one of the examples here is Muslim Forum, the world structure, which is supervised by the spiritual administration of Muslims of the Russian Federation. So it serves the goals of promoting the Russian model of Islam, this Muftiate, first of all, of course, and they cooperate. This Muslim Forum plays the role of place for cooperation of this Muftiate, RF, with Muslim religious organizations in Europe. How effective this cooperation, I cannot say. Of course, it helps RF to be more well known in Europe. I think in this kind of connection, of course, there is a result. As for foreign activity, the focus of interest of Muftiates, of course, is in Russia, and the main goal for them is to build a strong and reliable partnership with the state, the Russian state. That's why they actively support the state, not only in domestic policy issues, but also in foreign policy. And in this status, they participate in a global Islamic market. But for instance, in Syria and in other regions, in Crimea, there was also competition in 2014, 2015. There was a competition between Russian federal Muftiates for influence in Crimea. So such kind of activity strongly connected with the
I lost. I can't hear. Can you hear me? I lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, sorry, I thought I lost the volume. Okay, thank you. But I also meant, Renat, about, this is political kind of interaction, but in terms of theologically, for example, do they try to compete with kind of global muftis like Qaradawi, Al-Azhar sheikhs, or how they, who sell their product online?
Yeah, I see.
Yes, this... kind of?
I think not. The answer will be not, because I don't insult them, but they do not have probably intellectual resource to compete with high-ranked scholars in Islamic field. Even most prominent figures like Shamil Alauddinov and other scholars who produce religious literature, they are not so original and cannot contribute to the modern Islamic thought like predecessors in Tatar scholars in the beginning of 20th century, who are really a great contributor to the Islamic thought worldwide. Now there is a Grozny conference. You mentioned Grozny Fatwa. There was there were a lot of scholars there in this conference, took part in this conference. But now Russian Islamic figures, they mostly try to rethink the heritage of Tatar scholars of previous century. It is the main task, and if you I think you follow the literature, you see that the majority of publication is translation of publication of foreign scholars, foreign Islamic scholars, or publication translation into Russian language, the writings by prominent Islamic scholars of previous centuries, so-called neo-Jadids and so on.
Yeah, and then I turn to Olle Sundström. Do you have a question?
Yes, so now I'm online as well. Well, thank you, Jenny, and thank you, Galina Yemelyanova, for this questioning. It was quite exhaustive, but I have a question regarding the concepts from the theory of economics of religion that you use, and you use them in many ways as metaphors, and you also say that they work as structural metaphors after Lakoff and Johnson, and you explain that the usage of them helps importing creative understanding from one discipline, economy, to another, in this case, the study of religion. And I fully agree that this is in your case, a very productive method and analysis, and it's sort of novel, I believe. But my question is, when you compare metaphorically the trade market, the economic market with the religious market, you focus on the similarities, right? But as it is a metaphor, it also means that the economic market and the religious market, they are not the same, right? So my question is, how are they different?
Mm-hmm.
And I should probably say also, the reason why I ask this question is that I wonder if you think that there's a risk that using this method, you only see the aspects that are similar between, well, the economic and the religious market, and you only see the similarities between them, and you will also miss the differences and what is distinct for a religious market or for religious organizations. You risk seeing them as, in nature, you say on page 24, as governmental administrative agencies or national institutions.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Yes, I think I cannot I agree with you that in the dissertation I focused mostly on the similarities. As for differences, yes, I missed it because it was obvious that there are differences. It's just a metaphor, and I cannot use the economic terminology, not a terminology, but probably the situation in the economic markets, in financial markets, for instance, in particular. Of course, it's most difficult than. And mostly that's why I tried to not to compare with existing markets, but just with the markets from the political economy, where there is where there are markets in a pure form, so theoretical existing form, because in the reality these markets are more difficult than they exist in the theory and writings of Adam Smith and his followers. But one of the things which are not the same in the religious market, of course, it is the product, because according to this, according to the economics of religion theory, the main goal for religious organizations, for sects, for churches is to sell salvation in future life and to attract people in material resources, and for economic market, for economic entrepreneurships, for firms. Of course, the resource is not material, and that's why it is in material resource. This is the first one, and the second is the structure of the market itself. Some of the forms do not exist, even in the theory, in the religious market. For instance, I didn't mention so I mentioned monopoly, oligopoly, but other forms I didn't mention at least when I write about Russia. So it is, how to say it, not more simple, I mean, religious market. But of course, I understand that there are differences. Probably it was my fault not to write about these non-similarities, but I focused on similarities because it was obvious for me. It was probably a mistake not to mention about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Good answer.
Thank you so much, all of you who have participated. I also thank the audience, although I don't see you. But of course, especially thanks to Renat Bekkin and Galina Yamalova for this very interesting discussion. Now it's time for the examining committee to convene. So we will now all log out from here for a while and meet in a separate Zoom room. And I will provide you with a link to this Zoom room within a couple of minutes. And then we also take some minutes break before we see you in that. Okay, and then we'll come back to this room when the examining committee is ready to declare the result of the discussion. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Moment, please.
We should leave behind.
Oh, so problems with the video, sorry.
Looks like you.
Should I reload because I cannot switch on
Wait a second.
video?
No.
Just press here. Yeah.
Yes, I press, but it is impossible to.
Probably, yeah.
Yes, Renat, I think it's a good thing if you reload so that we can see you.
Okay,
if you can't get the video going. Renat, I think your camera is working because I see some tables.
But actually there's Gunilla and they are in the same room, I suppose.
Ah, so maybe we can take it through Gunilla's computer actually.
We can take you all on one screen, yeah.
And you need to unmute.
So?
Okay, I think, Renat, if you close your computer and only stick to Gunilla's, I think.
Already closed.
Take it out.
Yes.
Throw it out, please.
Kom lite närmare. Så.
Okay, I will hand over the word to Olle Sundström.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it is my privilege on behalf of the examining committee to announce that the committee unanimously has decided that this dissertation, The People of Reliable Loyalty by Renat Bekkin, passes as a dissertation in religious studies at Södertörns University. And you don't need to sound that surprised. Now we declare Renat Bekkin Doctor of Religious Studies in Sweden. Congratulations on behalf of the examining committee.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Renat.
Congratulations, Renat.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's a pity that we cannot be there with you to celebrate together with you.
You said.
Okay.
We will celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah. You will celebrate for us.
Yes, we will. Okay. Then I would like to end this dissertation. I would like to thank everyone who has been part of it. Of course, mostly thank you to Renat and Galina for the very interesting discussion that we had, but also thank you to the examining committee. Thank you for the substitutes who have been here. And I also want to thank the audience for taking part of this. Thank you so much, and hope to see you all in real at some point in the future.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.